Sure. As in the next topic will be why invest in crypto?
Yeah, why shall we invest in cryptocurrency, Aaron? Okay, maybe I'll just share with everybody here the reason why I actually invested my first ever Bitcoin. Prior to this, I've always thought that Bitcoin is just a bubble, and I never understand the concept, and I don't really understand the fundamental. As a matter of fact, even right now, I don't really understand the fundamental. That's why we invite you here, Aaron, right? But what I would say is that my perception changed a little bit, especially during March, this year, March. It was during when the Fed had started this entire of unlimited quantitative easing. Then it occurs to me that I'm like, hey, wait a minute. If I'm just thinking from the point of view of supply, right? The supply of, let's just say, fiat currency, the US dollars, against supply of commodities such as gold, or even like digital currency such as Bitcoin. One has actually went up tremendously, and these two things, which is gold and Bitcoin, have actually been staying. So in that manner, it can be considered as undervalued. So that was my first sort of like logical explanation to myself, right? So but I definitely need to understand a lot more in depth about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and whatnot. So yeah, please enlighten me some more, Aaron.
Yeah.
So I can actually buy more Bitcoin.
I'm glad you brought up the point about supply and demand, Rondi, because I think that's a big angle of why people are investing in crypto. And the fact is, okay, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin because, like I said, Bitcoin is the one that you want to go first for if you're new to this kind of thing. And the fact is that Bitcoin has limited supply. Its supply is also predictable, and it is not only predictable, it is completely traceable. Like anyone with an internet connection can definitely look at Bitcoin and make sure that it's issued according to what it was said. There's no fraud going on. Anyone can do that. Okay, so Bitcoin has limited supply, and like you said, there's currency devaluation going on all across the world. Most notably in developed countries, for example, say the US or the EU or the UK, where the governments are printing. Well, you can say printing, or you can say they're increasing their monetary supply. So traditional conventional economics will say that if you increase the supply of something by a lot, its value should go down. And I'll give you an example. The US government balance sheet of the central bank, when I say balance sheet, I say the total assets of the central bank. Before 2008, it never even touched $1 trillion US dollars. But as of last week, the US central bank's assets are $7.2 trillion. So in the space of 12 years, that currency has increased by 7 times in terms of the total assets in circulation. Now, again, conventional economics will say that you simply increase the quantity of something, its value will go down versus something like gold. So that's really the first argument for. The second argument is you can call it the developing country currency angle. So I don't know about you, but when I grew up in Malaysia, US dollar versus Malaysian ringgit was 2.5. Okay, I grew up very comfortable with that. Over the past 25 years, it has fallen to US dollar equals to 4.16 Malaysian ringgit. So I think for a lot of us, we want to have at least part of our assets, if not all our assets, I think just a little bit of our assets in a hedge against this kind of inflation or devaluation. For some people, it is gold. Gold has remained a very, very popular thing for thousands of years. But recent research has shown that more and more people, especially younger people, are preferring Bitcoin to gold as their inflation hedge. Now, the reasons, I don't know why, maybe people are more comfortable with digital today, but the data is unmistakable. People are moving towards Bitcoin. So that's the second reason. The third reason is basically the potential for large gains. And you mentioned something about volatility, Mengtek. It can go up, it can go down, which I think is true. I mean, if you want the potential to get high returns, you must also be prepared for for the possibility that it will crash every once in a while. So if we look at the historical performance of Bitcoin, and this has been documented in so many things, its performance has been the best asset class of the past 10 years. Whether you compare gold, oil, whatever, Bitcoin has performed better than anything else. If you look at it in terms of the Sharpe ratio, and when we say Sharpe ratio, which means basically the performance over the volatility of an investment, adding something like say 1, 2, 3, 5% of Bitcoin into a portfolio has greatly increased both the returns and also the Sharpe ratio of a traditional portfolio. So there's been recent articles that come out with a lot of research on that. And I think it basically just tells us that, if you're not comfortable with buying a lot, add a little bit into your portfolio, you get all the benefits, and you have the potential for a huge increase in value as well.
So if you look at the volatility compared to the return, it's actually much better compared to the other asset class. Is that what you mean? Sharpe ratio?
So I've not looked at it 100% asset versus asset. As far as I understand, if you look at Bitcoin's Sharpe ratio over the past, say, 5 to 7 years, I think it's like 2 point something or 3 point something, which as far as I understand is pretty good. But what I'm referring to is people have done studies on, they take a traditional portfolio of 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and they added 1%. Okay, see how it performs. Then they added 3% of Bitcoin. Then they added 5% of Bitcoin. And the research has shown that over the past 5 years, 7 years, that if you had done that, then your returns would have outperformed, say, just a normal 60-40 kind of portfolio.
But Aaron, that is basically talking in terms of price performance, right? But if, let's say, I am to buy Bitcoin, right, I would probably think that I would like to invest this for a long period of time. Let's just say 5 years and 10 years. So perhaps the question that I would like to ask is this a potential of, let's say, a 10-bagger, and if it is, can you paint for me the picture on why you think that the price is going to go 10 times from today in, say, the next 5 years? What sort of like economies or what sort of infrastructure that our global kind of like our world is going to have or be in the future that make Bitcoin and cryptocurrency so valuable in the future, if it is really something that we can invest now?
Yep, cool. So let me give you some statistics. Research has shown that probably 1 or 2% of the world's population have already invested into digital assets. So the first point is that it's really, really early. If you think you are late to crypto, Bitcoin, you are not late to it. It's only been around for 12 years. Only 1 to 2% of the population has invested in it. Now, if we take comparison between market size, the market cap of Bitcoin is roughly around, I think today it's probably around slightly below $300 billion. All the Bitcoin in the world, by the way, is worth below $300 billion. Combined. Everything in the world is probably below 300 billion. Compare it to, say, an asset like gold. There's probably $8 or $9 trillion of gold assets in the world. So if you believe in the case of, say, Bitcoin as a form of digital gold, and you say that, okay, I think Bitcoin will maybe only do, it will maybe only overtake, say, 15% of gold or 20%. That, I believe, is going to increase the price of Bitcoin by a multiple. It's not going to go up like 20%. It might go up like three or 4 times in price. If it just gets to, say, even 10 or 15% of the gold market cap. So that's the other thing. The other thing is, because Bitcoin is traceable, you can look at what is the activity that is happening on the on the blockchain or the Bitcoin network. You can see that over the years, the number of people who have been using Bitcoin has increased, and we're talking about we use a term called active addresses, which is the number of addresses that are actively sending Bitcoin to each other. If you look at it back in, say, 2013, it was below 100,000. if you look at it today, it's like 1 million active addresses are using Bitcoin on a monthly basis. So you can see that it's behaving a bit like you can call it like a tech stock lah. You know, the number of users continues to grow, and as you know, in any tech kind of stock or any kind of tech app or any kind of thing like Grab or Uber, the number of people that use it, the more people that use it, the more valuable it becomes. So again, we're now just at like 1 or 2%. You know, what happens if 10% of the world's population uses Bitcoin? I think there's a huge growth for potential there. Huge potential for growth there. Yeah.